Well, good evening and welcome to About the Valley. And tonight we have with us Dick Belanger, who is your former state trooper. You're
Retired state
now.
Retired state trooper.
Retired state
Well,
trooper, former guardsman.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about the museum and the learning center as well as the state police, which is probably one of the oldest state
Yes.
police forces in the country, right?
We believe we are the oldest. An act by the legislature in 1865 established a state police.
Right at the time of the end of the Civil War.
Right at the end of the Civil War, and most of the original enlistees were Civil War veterans,
Right.
and kind of were in the military, and they thought maybe, being a state police officer at that time was a good fit for their. And interesting, the record shows that they didn't stay long. A lot of them came and left in a short period of time. Very few of them stayed their whole career.
Oh.
Who knows why? We don't know why.
Well, at the time, you might have had a lot of the towns starting to establish police forces too.
That was part of it, I'm sure. There was not a lot of policing going on.
No.
And all of a sudden, the state is now implementing a statewide police agency, and I can understand that might have been concerning to some members of the public.
Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of changes came across the country after the Civil War ended. The South was in disarray, and they had to do rebuild.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are coming back from the war, and to no jobs in some cases, or get the farm running again, whatever.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of, you would have crime rise because some would just say, oh, maybe that's a better life.
Maybe. So it's, and for several years, they were mainly a detective force.
Right.
And, investigating the crimes. And then in around 1920, the governor authorized a patrol force. So kind of the beginning of the uniform branch of the state police. So you
Right.
still had the detective branch, as we have today. We have the Bureau of Investigative Services, and then we have the uniform branch, which is typically what you see out on the roadways or
Right.
around town in a mock cruiser.
Yeah, the investigative branch works with the district attorney.
Yeah, every district attorney's office in the county has troopers assigned to them as detectives. Then they have a detective lieutenant and a detective captain that, are coordinating the investigations,
Right.
managing the caseload, and liaisoning
And
with
you've
the
got
district
your
attorney.
crime labs all over the state.
There's two crime labs, and the forensic stuff goes into them for analysis, and so you have the investigative side and the
Right,
patrol side.
right. And like I say, there's been a lot of changes now. When you started out with the force,
Well, they started out basically they would saddle up a horse
yes,
and ride maybe from Holden and start heading for Northampton, and they had farms along the way that they could stable a horse in, and perhaps the trooper or the patrol.
yes, that's a long way by
Goes
horse.
along, and then typically they would go into the town and check in with the post office, and then learn that some farmer out that wants to talk to a policeman because something happened, so they'd ride over there.
What a
Started on
difference.
horseback, and then as motorcycles came along, the Indian motorcycle was used. Mainly, the Indians were manufactured in Massachusetts,
Yeah,
so we have a
Springfield,
lot
Mass.
of documentation of Indians on motorcycle, and a lot of injuries on those motorcycles. They were riding them in all kinds of weather. We have an Indian, a 53 Indian at the museum, and it's not a great motorcycle. It's
No,
the
the
brakes are
technology
lousy.
was-
Had what they call the suicide shifter, where you had to take your one hand off the handlebar to shift. And of course, you see them in
Hopefully you don't hit a
photographs.
bump.
Well, and you see them in photographs wuthout any kind of safety gear on. They had their
Right.
duty uniform on.
Yes.
And
Not even a
on
helmet.
patrol. Not a helmet, no, not a helmet, and just their regular uniform, and they were on patrol in all sorts of weather. I suppose the only alternative was to saddle up the horse back then.
Yeah.
I'll take the motorcycle.
In the winter, you didn't have the kind
Oh.
of winter clothing we have today. It'd be pretty
Not at
damn
all.
cold on that thing.
And absolutely, and then towards the late 40s, early 50s, automobiles. We can see the first cruisers in mid-30s. Automobiles are becoming. We have a 49 Ford, and so the
Yeah.
cruiser, they weren't very fancy cruisers compared to today.
Right.
So at least they had a car.
Yeah, today you have all kinds of technology.
There's all
in
kinds,
the
there's more
cruiser.
technology in there than it's amazing.
It
a
is.
lot of things right at their fingertips.
Yes. But, the thing is that you started out with a barrack system.
Yep, barrack system was, we have a little Greyhound bus in the museum, one of the museum cases, and people say, what's the Greyhound bus about? Well, typically a trooper from Worcester who may have been stationed in Pittsfield, and they would go to work for 4.5 or 5 days at a time. That's why they
Right.
called them barracks, because they lived there
Right, they
on the
didn't go
second
home.
floor. They didn't go home. So typically, they would get on the Greyhound bus, take the bus to Pittsfield. The
Imagine
patrol
that.
car would come down and get them at Pittsfield, take them, and they had 3 meals a day there. There was
Yeah.
no such thing as overtime. It was, you were there, it was kind of
Yeah,
like being in the Army, something's
You
happening.
were on 24 hours.
You got out of
It
bed.
was like being in the military.
That's much what it was like. And
Yeah.
difficult on family life, difficult on the children.
Right.
And in the early 70s, I think 74 is when they finally got out of the barrack system and,
Yes.
kept the barracks, of course, as a police station mostly. And
Right, it's a headquarters place for the.
it's a place to
different
run
districts.
everybody out of, and
Yeah.
so it did change a lot. And
I think it was a good move.
well, it was, but it's still, typically you're not working in the area where you live,
Right.
so you're still commuting a long distance to work.
But today it's a lot easier.
Well, it's a lot, yeah. I mean, with the cruiser today and the highways, and it's a lot easier to get to work.
Right.
So it was a big change.
But, the barrack system, you had a family, you were away from,
You were away from them for a week at a time,
yeah,
basically.
for 5 days.
Yep.
And not necessarily go home on weekends.
No,
It would
you
be-
may be working. It
Yeah.
was all staggered,
Yeah.
and it is today. The uniform guys work a 4 and 2 shift, 4 days on, 2 days off.
Right.
So you're rotating. You get a weekend off, perhaps every 6 weeks. And same with day shift, evening shift, third shift, the midnight shift. Those are all bid by seniority.
Right.
So it's not unusual for a graduating trooper to be from Worcester and be stationed at Springfield or even farther away.
Yeah, the new troopers end up usually getting out in Western Mass because no
Western
one
Mass.
wants to work.
Well, it's not that, it's when you look at who goes in the academy class. When
Right.
you look at the population density, more people live in this half of the eastern half of the
Right, so,
state.
yeah,
So the need
there's need for coverage.
is out there. Many
Yeah.
of the Russell Barracks for a long time had 11 cities and towns that did not have full-time police departments.
Yes,
So the Russell Barracks was the
you still get
police
that
department.
situation
In
out in
many,
Western
many
Mass.
places out there,
Yeah.
part-time departments, some
Yeah.
full-time, maybe after, 11 o'clock at night, there may not be a cruiser out in some of the smaller towns.
Right,
So, the state police are providing, the first respond type of thing to situations in those towns.
right, I mean, as we go along, they are developing more forces, but for a lot of years, they
Many,
didn't
many
have
years.
anything.
Many years, yep.
People don't realize how small some of those towns are out there.
Yes, we did a lot of that.
Yeah,
You never knew what the call was gonna be.
right.
That was interesting.
But, yeah, it's an admirable job to take on, but you gotta really want it,
Yes.
because there is, like you
It's-
say, it's tough on a family.
Tough on, and, getting through the academy, we always get that question when people come to the museum, how difficult it is, and I say, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
You gotta want it, and you gotta be prepared for it. It's a stressful environment, every minute of the day, you're moving, doing something.
Yes.
You're taking college level criminal law, motor vehicle law,
Well, that's the
statute
other
law,
thing.
all that is at the same time.
You're a trooper, but you almost gotta be a lawyer.
You gotta know what you're doing, you gotta
Yeah,
know
well, you
what the case law is, can I search that without a warrant, do I have
Yeah.
exigent circumstances, do I have a probable cause?
And-
Because
and
whatever
these
you
are-
do in the street, you're gonna answer for it
And
later
these are
on,
split-second decisions you gotta make.
oftentimes.
Yeah,
So it helps to study the case law and what the courts have said, you can do this and you can't do that. To be an effective police officer, you need to know the limits and how far you can go and how far you can't go,
right.
or else you're just gonna lose the case.
Absolutely, and you get yourself in trouble as well.
Well, as long as you're working in good faith, and you know, that's why we have senior level courts that can take a case and argue about it amongst themselves for months. Well, I had 5 seconds, you know, at 11 o'clock at night
Right.
to decide if what I was doing was an authorized search or not. And you folks have the luxury of arguing amongst themselves. So as long as I was acting in good faith, you're pretty much okay.
Right.
You may not win the case, but
And we go back before Miranda, when the courts end up throwing a lot of convicts out of jail because they didn't get read their rights.
well, once a Miranda decision was
Yeah.
issued, then you have to just becomes part of the arrest policy. You know,
Yeah.
you just give them Miranda rights.
Right. As far as I'm concerned, you know you're breaking the law. Why do you have to know your rights?
Well,
Go and learn your rights before you break the law.
that's not what the Supreme Court said.
I know, it's what
So-
they did, and it changed the whole,
but
changed a
they-
lot of things.
Yeah, but you know, most of the times, if you're a good investigator, you don't need the admission. The
Right.
Miranda right is telling you don't have to discuss anything with the policeman. You don't have to.
Right.
But in many cases, you can gather enough evidence without discussing the case
But
with
if you
the
don't-
arrestee.
If you don't tell the person that they got those rights,
Then you have not
then
applied the
you can't
law
prosecute.
legally.
Yeah, yeah.
And then shame on the police officer for not doing that.
yeah.
So
But it's not as
it's not a big deal. The Miranda
it's
warning
not a
is never a
simple
big deal.
job anymore. If
It's
you-
getting more and more complicated,
Yeah.
and a lot of us at the museum all often cite, we're glad we're retired, because it's not getting any
Yeah.
easier. But it was a great job. It was
Right.
a
But
rewarding
today, you
career.
almost, but before they put you on, even on the local police, they want you to have an education in
Absolutely.
law.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to know what you're doing out there.
Right.
And know how to respect people and know what your limits are, what their rights are, what your rights are. And you're a public servant. You know, you're not
Right.
the public boss, you're a public servant. And you have to keep that in mind. You know, this is not the Wild West anymore.
No, it isn't. Which was a whole different ballgame then. But
And
you-
as it should be. There's nobody complaining about that.
No.
There's a way of getting where you need to go legally and procedurally correct, and the outcome, if you're a good investigator, will get you where you need to go.
You know, people don't see it, but it's a very dangerous job. You just had a situation where a trooper was
Absolutely.
killed
Yeah, very dangerous.
in a car situation.
I've always said the most dangerous place is the breakdown lane of any interstate highway.
I know.
You're in
I mean,
there, you're parked there for 20, 30 minutes with a motorist, and 1,000 cars go by you a minute, texting and
you're
phone the
flying.
phone and changing lanes, and you
Yeah.
know there's only about 8 inches between the right side of the cruiser and the white line of the first travel lane. Not a lot of space there.
No,
So,
I mean,
but there are techniques that you can use and to try to reduce your risk.
I know what that feels. If you broke down on a Mass Pike at any time, and you sat there, and those cars were whizzing
Zoom.
by you, it's scary.
It's scary, and then you have to walk out.
Imagine being outside the car.
Right. A lot of times you'll see police officers will walk up the other side, the guardrail
Yes.
side.
Which makes more sense.
It does make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
And you park the car, the cruiser, in a little bit of an angle, so if the car
Yes.
hits it, it bounces off you.
right.
But you're still going to feel the impact, and
And there's been
Lot
a
of
number of
injuries there.
troopers lost their life
yeah.
on a
absolutely.
traffic stop.
You never know who you're stopping.
And that's the other thing. You don't know if that person is armed,
No, you
if,
don't.
if they're high on something.
Nope.
You know, especially if you stop them because they're driving erratically.
But
what's the
you adopt
situation?
your patrol procedures that can give you somewhat of an edge. I mean, sometimes there's nothing you can do. I mean, it's going to be what it's going to be. But
Right.
if you can take some steps to minimize that, you know, like at night, you know, typically there's a lot of light shining on the car. He's looking in his rearview mirror, trying to watch the policeman walk up the other side.
Right.
Now you can get to his driver's side window and get a look at what's going on there before you actually approach him.
Yeah,
a good
especially
technique.
if you're approaching someone that knows they're in big trouble, they're going to do whatever they can.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Fortunately, you get great training.
Yes.
The academy, they did a great job. That
They do a tremendous job preparing you, and then on graduation, you get assigned to a barracks, and then
Right.
you ride for 3 months with a seasoned trooper. So you're on patrol, usually several different ones. You work a day shift for 30 days, the second shift and the third shift. So you've been exposed to.
Yeah, because every shift is different.
Every shift is different, so you may be exposed to 6 or 8 troopers within that 90 days, and they'll do an evaluation on you, and then we'll take it from there. So you are being exposed to what you learn in the academy. Now you're actually practicing it with somebody watching you and helping
Right.
you. So by the time you get off what we call break-in, you've got a lot to learn, but you're pretty well situated if
Right.
you've kept your eyes and your ears open to do okay.
Give us a call, 508-266-0990 if you want to talk to Dick. If you want to talk police talk, hey, he's right here now. I gotta tell you, the academy, that was going to be a prison
Yes.
under Mike Dukakis.
Yep.
And the protests were unbelievable.
They
And
were.
I agree, because
It was a beautiful country out there.
it's very rural.
Very, very
I
rural.
mean,
I think there were more cows in New Braintree than there were people.
yeah,
Very
right.
rural. There were things happening in Boston where Boston University wanted the old headquarters at 1010. That was an old building. And then they saw an opportunity to move the academy to New Braintree and move general headquarters to Framingham.
Right, and that was a great move.
It worked out okay. And
Yeah.
the academy out there, they built a beautiful gymnasium there after they moved in. Built a beautiful state-of-the-art range for firearms training. And it's much different than the old days in a sand pit.
Yeah.
This is very dynamic, shoot, don't shoot. It's a moving targets pop
State
up.
of the art.
State of the art. So
Yeah.
everything out in New Braintree is state of the art. It's a very busy place. Not only training local PDs, they have other state agencies come in.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You support the local police as well
Absolutely, sure.
with training and.
Whatever, yeah. So it's a busy place. The best and brightest go there as instructors. And drill instructors are handpicked
Yeah.
to run the academy and do what the commandant sets the standards, and then they follow the standards.
Yeah, and for the new recruits, it's actually like going to Marine basic training, isn't it?
Well, it's
They're tough, but they
it's-
gotta be because,
you think of that, but it's more difficult than that. Going through basic training in the Army, all you had to learn was how to be a basic soldier.
right,
So you weren't learning the more complicated stuff. At the academy, you're learning the basic stuff, but at 10 o'clock in the morning, you're in a college-level criminal law course.
right,
So you're doing this Marine Corps almost difficult type of training you see in the movies, and then now you're jumping into a college environment, changing your mindset to try to study constitutional law.
Yeah.
And then 2 hours later, you're back to the Marine Corps thing,
Right.
where in basic training, all I had to do was learn how to, march and
do the recruits stay overnight?
yes, that's a live-in 24-hour day, and they are up from very early in the morning, and 10 o'clock, I think 10 o'clock is probably lights out. But during the day, when you're there, every minute of that day is being utilized, and you have to
Yes.
keep up. There's
Yeah.
no resting period, so the people that basically resign either just can't keep up with that pace of the physical demands, the mental demands, the stressful demands, the academic demands.
But it's gonna be stressful when you get out on your own patrol too, so this is a way of.
It's a way of us finding out
Yeah,
who's got the
weed
right
them out
stuff.
before they go out there.
Absolutely, and that's what it does.
Yeah, how long are they in the academy?
It's generally anywhere from 22 to 26 weeks, depending on the curriculum that are mandatory subjects that have to be done. Holidays can come into it. They might get Christmas Day off or something. So
Right. They
it's
get
usually
weekends
24
off?
to 26.
They get weekends off?
Yeah, usually you're out of there Friday afternoon, late Friday afternoon, reporting back first thing Monday morning.
So it's a little bit of a break.
But you've got homework.
Yeah, yeah, when you get home, you still got a lot of
You
things to
still got
do.
homework, and you try to catch up on some sleep,
Yeah.
visit with your family, and catch up on the house that's falling down, and the boiler don't work, and all those other problems that can go on.
Yeah, because most of these guys, by the time they get to the academy, they're married, right?
Some aren't,
Yeah.
yeah. No. Depends on the,
Because you're not gonna walk out of the military or just get it done high school and apply. It doesn't work that way.
well, it can. I mean, it depends on when when the recruit class are being held. If you time it right, I waited 6 years.
Right.
Get out of the Army, I waited 6 years. Some people can go in 6 months after they take the exam. If they just happen to fund an academy class,
Right,
they can hit it lucky.
yeah.
And then sometimes it might be 3 classes in a row, year and a half, or it might be 2 years between the class. So you just never know.
But once you get on the job, it's almost like a family, isn't it?
Oh, that's a very tight.
I mean, you see all your
group.
retirees are still
We still
get together,
we still get together,
and now you got a museum.
and we have the museum, and typically you graduate with a class, and everybody, you kind of go by what class you're in and say, I'm Dick Belanger from the 60th RTT, Recruit Training Troop. So that class, because you went through so many weeks of, good times with the
Right.
with the other 50 or 60 people,
Yeah.
you've really bonded
Yeah,
together.
you got a camaraderie that's
And-
going to
and-
be there for life.
Right, and it's just a camaraderie with all the fellow troopers that you work
Yeah.
with. You work with guys, people move around. The other thing about the state police is it offers so much in law enforcement. You can be on patrol in a cruiser, you can be a detective, major crime, homicide, you can fly a helicopter, ride a horse, underwater things, ballistics, crime scene search. I was on the commercial enforcement unit for about 10 years, so we were doing motor carrier safety. So there's just so many opportunities within law enforcement.
Well, you had a big change during the Weld administration
Yeah.
when they
We did.
eliminated all we
Well,
had
we consolidated.
NBC police, we had registry police, all that's gone.
We
And
all
state
folded
police-
into one agency.
Yeah, state police took over everything.
Right, and that was a difficult time for some of us.
Yeah.
And, but
Well, I'm gonna be candid. I was shocked when I walked into the registry and you see these huge, big fat guy wearing a state police uniform. Because you never saw a state cop that looked like that. But that was part of the transition. He was gonna lose
Well,
his job.
Colonel Kennedy was a deputy superintendent at that time, and he was in the museum recently. And I never talked to him as a trooper. He was a lieutenant colonel.
Right.
So I had a chance to talk to him, casually, and I said, what were you thinking? He said, well, we didn't have an option. The governor and the
Right.
legislature mandated it.
Yeah,
And he said, but we knew in about 10 years' time.
they'd be weeded out.
Well, he didn't say that.
They'll be
That's-
retired.
He said, we knew in about 10 years' time, they would transition through the department.
Right.
And then the state police would be, in his words, the premier law enforcement agency in the state.
Yes.
And that came to fruition. Now, I couldn't see that as a young trooper, but he did. And today, there is one state police standard. Everybody goes to our academy, so there's no double standards.
Right,
And be truthful, a lot of the MDC police officers, a friend of mine was an MDC officer out at the Co-op, and he was not happy about it, because he said, if I wanted to be a trooper, I would have taken the exam.
Right.
He liked to be out at the Co-op and
Yep.
doing what they did out there. He was quite pleased and not happy to get on the state police.
Yeah, because once they became state police, they could be transferred out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, on the MDC, he was there
He was
for
there.
life.
He was happy there.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it worked out. It was some difficult times, but the senior leadership on the department had the foresight to know that it would transition and transform into what is now the premier law enforcement agency in the state.
yeah, and
No competition for us now.
Yeah, right. Massachusetts being a state that we have mountains in the west and ocean in the east.
Yeah.
So you'd be almost doing anything.
You're doing anything. Casinos, the state police are in the casinos.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, which is a new thing in
And-
Massachusetts now.
Right. The casino law mandated that state police be there to look things over.
Right.
So it's a great job. It's a big job. You can do so much on it. So diversified, and you don't have to stay doing anything for any long period of time. Do something for a few years, transfer over here. You're always learning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always it's a lot of excitement.
It can be.
Yeah, and you can get into
Some of it's not always good, but
I mean, you had some in the 1970s. You did some great investigative work
yeah.
over in Boston with the gangland
Gang
slings that
stuff,
were going
all
on.
that, yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, if you read Howie Carr's book, it's amazing what
Yeah, wow.
was going on there.
Yeah.
And in fact, you had to work hand in hand with the FBI.
Many times.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, yeah. And this
But the
Joe-
state police had their own investigations
Right.
going. Tom Foley was running
Tom
a lot
Foley
of
was,
it.
yep, absolutely. It was after Whitey Bulger for many, many years.
Yeah, yeah. It took a lot, it took a long time to get him.
Well,
He
he
was
certainly
pretty,
did.
he was
Pretty-
pretty good at keeping himself
It was
from
indeed.
getting caught.
It was indeed. So what we do at the museum is our mission is to try to
Yes.
preserve the history, the artifacts, and the story. And that's what we try to do there. And the other part of the museum is our learning center.
Yes,
And the goal of the learning center is to interact with not only children, high school, and the public adults in a way where we can use the learning center as a way of communicating, visiting with, teaching. So oftentimes, we can get a college level group of criminal justice. They maybe want to come in and talk about search warrants. So we'll get somebody that's
very
that's
important.
very good at search warrants and
Yeah.
have that discussion about search warrants. But as importantly, we are communicating with the public and trying to establish, a bridge there, that we're not the big bad guys.
Right.
And have a relationship with officer friendly, if you will, and get a point across. And there are so many, we'd like to move that learning center a little more this year and do some more with it. There's lots of opportunities for both young kids. We had some high school kids in, and we talked about a couple of cases that was appropriate for them to talk about. And, talking police procedures, how do you get there? How do you develop probable cause? How do you write an affidavit? What an affidavit is, what's the limits of a search warrant? It could be the local trucking industry,
Yes.
Like I said, I did a lot of years on the commercial enforcement unit.
Yeah, that's a
we can-
whole unit in
We
itself.
we can talk about your dump truck. And, so we're really looking to kind of expand that this year and do some more with the Learning Center. I mean, it's one thing to come in and learn about the history of it, but it's also part of our mission
So
is
if
to
you- if you-
communicate today.
If you're a high school teacher, or even a grammar school teacher,
Yeah.
get
We
in
can-
touch with you.
Absolutely, we can work with you to develop the right program for the audience and
If
what
you-
you wanna
yeah.
talk about.
If you're
We
gonna-
have the,
if
we
you've
have
got a
the whole.
Scout group, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts.
Whatever.
Yeah.
We have the colonel has been very supportive of if we need a certain specialty person, when we're gonna try to set up this learning center event, he's been very supportive of trying to get us. If we don't have somebody on hand that can do it as a retiree, we can reach out to the department and he's been very cooperative in sending us that.
I'll tell you, I've been to your museum a couple of times now, and it's really, you did a super job.
Well, thank
The
you.
displays are beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's such a great place to visit, and you can see some of this stuff. And you go back through the years.
Yeah, we did it in a chronological, where you come in and we start in 1865 with the law and the equipment they had then,
Yes.
photographs of who they were back then, and then we march through time, if you will, up to the present day.
Yeah,
And
and
we
you
show
see how
how the
changes
department
have
has
been
changed.
enormous.
Equipment has changed, personnel has changed. We have a little TV screen with a day in the life at the academy, and we talk about what it's like to be at the academy, and then we're very proud of the Norman Rockwell. We have a great relation with the Rockwell
Yes.
Museum.
That was a great painting that he did.
We have that painting. We have some photographs that Norman Rockwell used to paint that. He went to the Pittsfield Howard Johnson's and
Yes.
grabbed Trooper Dick Clemens and a child named Ed Locke, who was the grammar school kiddo. He went down to grammar school and asked for, and they went to the Howard Johnson's and he took pictures of at the stool on the counter, different uniforms on the trooper, and he had his coat on, his blouse on, off, and then Rockwell got back to the studio and he thought the background was kind of commercial, so he drove down to Joe's Diner in Lee, Massachusetts, took a picture of Joe's Diner, the old-fashioned diner, and when you look at the painting on the cover, the stools are actually Howard Johnson's stools, and the background is Joe's
Joe's
Diner.
Diner.
So we replicated the diner scene, so
Yes.
guys will come in and they can sit at the counter and have their picture taken.
And you've got, the detail is phenomenal. It makes it exactly like the picture.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, you did a great job. And then you had him down there.
Yeah, then once a year, usually in December, we just did it was last Saturday, we had the Runaway Day, we call it, because the name of the picture is The Runaway.
Right.
And Ed Locke was there, and he visits with the people that come in and signs copies of the photo of the painting. And,
He was an interesting person to talk with.
yeah, yeah.
Because he knew Norman Rockwell.
Yeah,
I
he
guess
was-
he did a number of sittings.
Yeah,
for
he
him.
sat in at least, we know of at least 2 pictures. He's the youngster, if you remember, the doctor's office, and he's
Yes.
looking at the doctor's diploma, and he's about ready
And
to
the
get a
doctor's
shot.
got this,
He's got the needle, that's
needle
Ed
in
Lock.
his hand, and
Yeah,
he's
that's
got
Ed Lock. Yeah.
he's
He draws it
showing his
down,
butt.
yeah, and that's Ed Lock. And so he's graciously comes up every December, and he's been great with us. And,
Right.
So
We've been
we-
up to the Norman Rockwell Museum.
Yeah.
That's a great tour as well. But
So we have a lot of the old equipment. We have,
Yeah.
the other thing we're trying to do now is we're also digitizing as much of the old reports, photographs.
Yeah.
And now we just had, recently we had 2 different authors come in there. Each one of them is writing a novel. And they came in wanting to learn about what was happening in the 1930s when one of these novels were taking place, what the equipment would have been like, and he got his camera out and he was, so we helped him. And then we discussed, to the best we know, was how the investigations were done back then. And it wasn't
Right.
any DNA type analysis and crime scene stuff, so.
it was a whole different
A whole
ballgame.
different ballgame. So to keep his book kind of legitimate, he was looking to us to help him trying to determine what was the state of the art back then.
Right.
And so we could show him photographs of what a cruiser looked like back then. And
Yeah, you go back far enough. I mean, you go back. There was no fingerprints at one time.
well, certainly the problem with the fingerprints until the newest system is you might have a set of fingerprints, but you had no idea who they were.
Yeah. How do you
And-
research them?
And then you go into the fingerprint section and you would say to the fingerprint, specialist, well, I got 35,000 print cards in the
Yeah,
back
which one
room.
do I check?
Get me, and what you had to do is he would say, bring me a suspect. So that get back to the investigation.
Right.
Go find a suspect, get his
Right.
prints, and then compare them. Today, the technology is far
Well,
beyond.
now you got a computer. The
Computer
computer
just-
makes the comparison.
Boom.
Yeah. Right. So it's really AI.
Yeah, it's really what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And now
so-
with DNA, it's even more positives. You can really.
we're working on restoring a turnpike cruiser. Now, the turnpike cruiser, when it opened in the 50s, they were patrolled by the state police, but they were in green and white cars.
Yes. Yeah. The cars were green and white, and
and
they
they
wore a green uniform.
And they were station wagons. And for a
Yes.
while, they did wear green uniforms, and then shortly thereafter, they went to the normal uniform. But they basically were a station wagon with the stretcher, the litter in the back.
Yes.
And the idea was you're on the interstate, the pike, and then throw them in the back of the station wagon and get them to the hospital.
Right.
So that's
That was putting a lot of responsibility. on
yeah,
the
it sure
trooper.
was. So we're working on a green and white. We have a '78 Ford Crown Victoria, and we've got a '49 Ford, the old motorcycle. So we've got some vehicles. We can talk, what vehicle was in play in the 1930s or 40s, whenever the novel is being written, or somebody's just doing some history for
Right,
a
you're
term
gonna use
paper or something. We can help them out.
The parking lot out back. to
No,
put some
we have
vehicle?
them stored in several different places. That's one of our challenges is
Yeah.
we'd
where-
love to
how
have
would
a
you put 'em
storage.
on display?
Right, well, we have to go get them and drive
Right.
them over to Uxbridge. Or
I know when you were in Grafton, you had a car.
We had a car there.
But you had room in
We
the
had room,
building.
we had a garage there, yeah. That was a temporary, after our fire, that was a temporary way station for us. And then,
Right.
we were struggling then, trying to figure out what we're gonna do. We had taken over the Grafton Barracks after the SP Grafton moved to State
Oh.
Police Millbury.
Right, your
At the new-
Millbury
at the new-
facility now, which is,
Right, and so the museum board then worked out a deal with the state that they took over the Grafton Barracks, turned it into the museum, and they had hired a painter to bring the second floor back to the barracks, the way it looked in the 50s.
oh, and
He
that's
lit the
where
place on
slept.
fire, and he lit the place on fire.
Oh,
So it got some pretty good damage. Luckily, he had an insurance company, and we didn't get enough from the insurance settlement to reoccupy that building. We're still not yet sure what we're gonna do with it. Given that where we are today, we've really used up, the more space you have, the more stuff you collect. And
exactly.
we've collected a lot of stuff, and it'd probably be not practical for us to go back to the Grafton Barracks without, adding on to it or something. So we're not sure what the future holds.
Personally, I'd love to see you stay here.
Well,
in
we
Whitensville.
love it here. I mean,
Well, you know,
Mr.
you're right in the
Osman
heart
been
of,
to-
you're in the heart of our historic district. Which I was the chairman of the committee that got that district.
Yeah,
And it's part of the Blackstone Valley National Park
Yeah.
system. So it's a great draw for us and helps. us
well,
bring
it's a
the
great
tourists.
building for us. It's wide open, it's
Yeah.
large, it's a historic looking, a beautiful looking building.
Yeah, oh, it is.
So we're very happy there. But again, you know, we're a tenant.
Yep,
We hope to be a tenant for many, many years to come.
right.
But you never know. So
No, you know.
you never know. So we're very happy. We've got plenty of space. It's just a perfect space for us. We've had some local companies help us out with some of the interior work.
Yeah, Access TCA.
I
think
think
they-
that's one of them.
Yeah, they did the display work.
Yeah,
Very
very
good
nice.
job.
Yeah, they're
Unbelievably nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Which has helped me out a lot because I'm the one that usually tasked to hang the pictures and build the cabinets.
Yeah, you talk about
So-
pictures, you got your pictures of all the troopers that died on duty.
Yeah, we have our right when you come in, the first thing you're gonna see is the memorial wall. And it's a photograph with a little story about what happened to everybody
That's a
going
great
back to
thing
1865.
to honor them because
Absolutely, we have to do that.
That's a
And,
very, you know,
yeah.
that's a very hazardous job, like I say. It's not like going to work in a factory.
And the largest number, I mean, there were helicopter crashes, airplanes,
Yeah.
shootings. More of them were motorcycle accidents.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah.
and like
it
you
was-
say, at one point, you didn't have much protection when you were on that motorcycle. Now, at least they,
The brakes on it weren't so good either.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, that's our memorial wall, and then like I said, we moved through the decades. And then, you know, we gave some tours this morning to a couple of high school group. And, you know, I stopped my tour with, listen, I'm gonna show you a bunch of old stuff, but let's have a conversation while we're moving along here.
Yes.
And let's talk about what you see, or ask, you know, a chance to ask me questions. Let's discuss, you know, police work as a career, police work, what's what in
No,
there,
that's
and
very
try to
important.
get them engaged. I mean, anybody can look at old stuff in a museum, but I want to engage them. All of our tour guides want to kind of engage the visitor to be more than just looking at, oh, that's a great old picture of a car. So let's talk about what was going on. then.
Recruiting's important now because
Big yeah.
you don't see as much interest.
Well, there's less interest in the channel. One of the Boston TV stations just did a program on what they call the high attrition rate at the academy,
Yeah.
and it's somewhere around 40 to 50%
Ooh,
of
that's
people go in,
Yeah.
and you have to do an exit interview. I was stationed at the academy twice, and you have to do an exit interview, like why are you quitting? And typically, it's they weren't physically ready for the demands of the physical part of it.
Right.
Not only the physical fitness stuff, but just being on the go 12 or 14, 16 hours a day. There's no rest periods. Mentally, they couldn't handle some of the stress. It's very stressful training, like we talked about earlier, designed to be that way.
Yeah. Because you're going to be under a lot of stress when
Well-
you're out there on your own.
So what the state police has recently instituted is a cadet program. They're going to take a certain age youngster, boy or girl, man or woman, and they hire them not as policemen. They hired as employees of the department to do everything but policing. You don't go on a cruise, you don't go out.
Right.
But the idea is to immerse them into the state police culture as a civilian.
Yep.
And then hopefully over a year or two, they'll come to their own conclusion that not for them,
Right.
or yes, it is for me. And the goal is to identify those that's yes for me, and hopefully they have a better likelihood of completing the academy.
Oh,
So that's
that's a good move.
it's a very good move, I think, you know.
Yeah.
The colonel adopted, and I think it's hopefully, because you know, the department spends a lot of money getting you into the academy on day one.
Yes.
And for you to quit 8 hours later.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just two things, a lot of money was wasted, and the colonel doesn't get another trooper that he needs on the job.
Right.
So maybe we could hone that down a little bit with this cadet
No,
program.
that is a good.
Because they'll be in the barracks doing paperwork, whatever they're
Yeah.
gonna be doing.
But they're intermingling.
they're
with-
intermingling
with
in the
current
culture.
troopers, and
Exactly.
you get to
the
know
job.
what the job is like.
That's exactly it. And
I mean, even the military's having a hard time recruiting
absolutely,
now.
everybody is.
And the kids today,
Well,
They're not out like they used to be.
I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. Certainly life as a child today is different than we were kids.
Yeah.
But you have to deal with, it is what it is. You have to deal with it. And I think the department is trying to deal with it in several ways. We had two state police recruiters come in. Now, I never talked to a state police recruiter. Now they have young troopers that are out talking to folks.
Well, at
Talking
one
about
time,
the
you didn't
job.
need any
You didn't need
recruiters.
'em. I mean,
No, there was so many applicants.
14,000, 15,000 people
Yeah.
would take the exam.
Yeah, you were rejecting more than you were
Absolutely.
losing.
Right, so today, that's not the way, so they are doing an outreach program via the recruiters to try to get the word out and see if we can kind of generate some interest. And so that's working, as well as the cadet program, I think is gonna be helpful.
Right. And of course, today with the technology, you not only have to be physically in great shape, you gotta know your way around technology today.
Yeah, which would leave me out.
Yeah, I mean, you're riding around with the laptop
Oh,
and your
absolutely,
computer,
right
and
there,
and
and-
you're cruising
Yeah,
now.
and- Yeah, all different, much different.
Yeah,
But, when I was on, it was much different than, 1902.
exactly. Oh, yeah,
I didn't have to ride a horse.
right. Yeah, you have to ride a horse, feed the horse,
That's right.
find a place to stable it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
much different.
yeah. A whole different ballgame.
So, we encourage everybody in town. We're open on Tuesdays and Saturdays, 11 to 4 usually, and, please come, stop by.
But if someone wants to do a tour with their class or something
We
like
could
that,
just work
you
through.
can work out a
We
date,
can work
different
out a
day of the
deal,
week.
like we did today, was not a Thursday, and we rounded up some folks and got them in there and
Yeah,
gave the high school tour. So, yeah, we can,
which is
we can
probably
make some
better, they
accommodations.
come on their own day, because now
could
you're
work.
concentrating on just
Just from
them.
them, yeah. We're flexible. Our biggest problem is staffing it. We want to
Yeah.
do everything we can, but we have a limited amount of volunteers. And
Right.
so we have to work around the volunteer
So if anybody
schedule.
in town is interested, you'll
Stop by and let's
stop by
talk.
and become a volunteer.
Let's talk,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, you might find it interesting.
Well, we've got a whole bunch we've got some residents here that we didn't have in Grafton, that since we moved, some folks have come in.
Yes, I
and,
know a couple of them.
There you go. And they come in on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and you never know what's gonna happen. We have a little gift shop there, so there's
Yes.
lots of state police museum-type equipment, and decals and T-shirts
Now,
and
do you
hats.
charge an admission?
Yeah, we do. Well, there's veterans are exempt, children under 14, I think it is. And then, but it's usually a $5 admission charge.
Right, which is, because you need some money to keep
yeah,
and
we-
maintain everything. I mean,
Right,
it's
and
not-
then, we feel that if you don't pay a little something, the thing probably has no value.
Right,
And then we're part of another consortium of museums around the country, where if you become a donor, there's a certain level silver donor,
Yes.
you become a sustaining member of our museum. That gives you privileges to many, many museums around the country that are part of that consortium.
yes.
So you go in and show me your state police museum card, you're now able to go into the museum somewhere else in the country.
Oh,
And
okay.
So that's a great benefit for anybody
Yeah.
that moves around or travels, going on vacation, something. And then, of course, we'd love just to have you sustain us annually.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean.
We don't get any state police budget money.
No,
We're a 501c corporation. We're self-sustaining.
yep,
And we do it through donations, and the Retired Troopers Association is very generous with when they do their membership, they ask for a few extra dollars to send to the museum. And then we have a payroll deduction plan for active troopers that they can dedicate a little bit of their weekly paycheck to our
oh,
museum.
okay, good idea.
Yeah, so they, pretty good support with that, and the retirees, and, we struggle along, keep the lights
Right.
on.
Now, if you're a veteran, you don't need to be DD 214.
No, we don't put you through a lot of hoops.
Right.
We can kind of tell. I have enough investigative service. I can ask you what your MOS
But a
is.
lot of veterans, you can get veterans put on your license now.
Yeah, you can, on your driver's license, absolutely.
Yeah, so
But,
you
you know-
show your license, hey, look, I'm a veteran.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody comes in and tells me they're a veteran, I'm not gonna check
Right.
them. I'm gonna take their word for it. And if they're
Yeah.
telling me a story, they beat me out of $5, okay.
At one point, you had a lot, but you're getting fewer because
Yeah.
fewer people, there's no draft, hadn't been a draft since, what,
Who knows?
1972, I think.
Yeah.
So,
But, you know, it,
but prior to that, almost every
Was-
male served because you had no,
yeah,
you
they
either
have no
joined or you
choice,
got
they
drafted.
certainly, yeah. So, that's what we do. We keep moving along, trying to make the museum a better place and a very, you know, pleasant place for you to be. We want to interact with the public and
Right.
discuss things and answer your questions and talk about history and then talk about the future as we know it. you
I
know.
mean, the facade of the building
Oh,
looks
it's
like a
gorgeous.
museum.
Yeah, it does. It was wonderful, a great find for us, and the landlord has been terrific with us.
Oh, Vinny's a
Vinny's
great guy.
just top shelf guy.
I
And,
tell you, how we ended up with that building, when we were kids, I knew Vinny back then, we used to sit on the wall, and the police would come by and kick us off.
Sure.
So, no big deal,
Yeah.
but Vinny said, one of these days we're gonna buy that building.
Really?
Yeah, and when it went up for sale, because the bank moved out, my brother called him up. My brother had the trucking business. Said, Vinny, it's for sale. He goes, I'm gonna buy it, and he did.
You did, yeah. And it was just pure luck that we had another deal going in another town, and it wasn't a great deal. And Jack Crawford, retired lieutenant, he's a member of our
Yes.
board. Jack ran into, I think it was a realtor, real estate, and says, "Oh, I got a place you might be interested in." And quickly, we voted to take Vinny up on his offer, and he's been very generous.
Yes.
And it's a perfect place for us.
Oh, yeah.
We really can show the collection in a wide open.
Yes, and then you had AC, Access TCA came in, put up
Yeah.
your display, I
Oh.
guess, you gotta go in there.
Very professional.
Oh, my,
Solved a lot of our problems hanging pictures, very professionally done. You'll see the work that they did. It just, very generous.
I mean, it's well worth the trip, and
Yeah.
like I say, you go through time walking through,
Yep.
and, you know, and then you can get your picture taken
Yeah.
at the
At the-
soda fountain.
Yep, at the Norman Rockwell counter. Or anyway, you can take a picture anywhere, we don't care.
Right,
Take it, so it's a work in progress. We're always striving to make it better. We're always collecting things. We're always finding something somewhere, and we get a call. A woman came in yesterday that called me. Her grandfather was the first trooper assigned to Martha's Vineyard. And,
Oh.
had a lot of his artifacts, his stuff, some of his reports and his enlistment papers, and all that's part of the
and
history.
he must have stayed there,
He did. He was one of the
24
first.
hours a day,
He just
right?
lived on there.
yeah, because they're gonna say, you're not gonna bring him back and
No,
forth.
he lived out there, and he was the lone policeman on the island.
What a
And,
job that would
yeah,
have been. And here's
so-
another place that years ago, they probably didn't have a police force.
They didn't. No, there was no. It was just one trooper.
Yeah,
One island, one trooper.
wow,
And so she looked him up, and we were able to provide her with some photographs that we had of him. She gave us some of the photographs that she had, and so
Yeah.
we complemented each other's collection, if it were.
right, that must have been something.
Yeah. There's a million stories out there.
Yeah, I mean,
And,
probably not a lot of crime, but there's still, when you had something,
Yeah.
you were all alone to have
Well,
to work on it.
There was always crime. There was always something going on. And
Right.
some of it's big crime, some of it's smaller
Right.
crime, but it's it's all, somebody's getting injured, or somebody stole something from somebody.
Yeah,
And
today it's getting even tougher though.
I would think it is. I'm not out there, but I would think it is.
Well, I don't think, there's less conscience today.
It seems to be. It seems to be.
I mean, how, you walk in a store
And
and just empty
grab
the
stuff
shelves, yeah, I
and
mean,
run out the door.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine that.
especially knowing you're probably gonna be on camera,
Yeah.
they don't even care.
No, they don't seem to.
I've never seen anything
I've never
like
seen
this.
like it.
And this is the deterioration of society when
Perhaps.
things like this start happening.
I don't know.
I know.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I just-
so you're probably glad you don't have to deal with it now.
I'm very glad I don't have to deal with it.
I mean, I think the hot rodding is less now.
Yeah, probably is less interested in being a motorhead would certainly, when I was a youngster, that's what we all had, our hopped up cars, and we were
Right.
running around town and trying to evade the police,
Those are the guys that went to law enforcement.
Yeah. I had some explaining to do when I got interviewed, and as a youngster, and Yeah, no, it was, so things change. I mean, now it's, there's probably more computer crime that we never had. There's ways
Yeah,
of stealing
that's a
things over
big
the
factor.
computer. that
Yes.
You don't need to go break into it, just steal it
Yeah, well,
take
you
somebody's
heard of-
bank account via computer.
They're doing that with these cards,
Yeah,
the gift cards you
gift
buy.
cards, yeah,
They're actually scanning them at home and putting them back on the shelf.
wow.
Well, have you heard about that?
No, I hadn't, no.
Yeah, they steam them open, so it doesn't look like they're opened, because they're in a cardboard container.
Uh-huh,
They steam it open, they're able to get the number, then they put the tape back to cover it, but now they got all the information. You go in, they put it back on the shelf. You go in, you buy the card. Well, all we gotta do is go online and find out the card has been charged.
wow,
Oh, it's
Yeah.
$50 credit on it.
yeah,
Then they go out and they use the credit online.
okay. Yeah,
mean,
so there's always gonna be crime, it just gets more sophisticated, but
Oh, it's unbelievable.
fortunately, the police technology tries to keep up with it.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's
we have
amazing
troopers
how,
that are
how
that are
smart
experts
these
in
criminals
computer.
can be.
Oh, absolutely, we have experts who now just focus on computer crime.
Yes,
So
yeah,
it is.
that's part
It's
of
still
it.
the good guy chasing the bad guy.
Yeah.
It's just different levels, we used to chase in your car, and they chased me in my car, and now they're chasing you on a computer, I guess.
I know, it's really something. And
Yeah.
So that's a good position to get into if you want to get, if you're into technology, the police are
We
looking,
could use you.
state police are looking for you,
Sure,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and you, like your crime labs now,
Crime lab,
much
very
more
sophisticated, very sophisticated stuff they're doing with DNA analysis and,
Yeah,
all sorts of, analysis of everything. They analyze everything. And, if they can use that to solve the crime, all the better,
yeah.
and win the case.
And you need people that have this knowledge to come in and work.
Absolutely. Yeah, they could use a few good men and women. There's no
Yeah.
question about that.
Yeah, you saw the institution of women into the state police, right?
Yep, Kathy Kletter, Trooper Kletter was the third member. She was in my class. And two prior to her, she did remarkably well, did very well. And
Yeah.
it's kind of commonplace now. It's not a big deal.
Right. At the time, a lot of-
1978 Kathy was the third female trooper to
There
graduate
was a
from
lot
the
of
academy.
concern
There probably was,
because, well, we looked at women from a different viewpoint,
maybe.
and
Kathy handled herself very well in the job. Did,
Yeah, no,
very
they-
well, and
in the military.
yeah,
When I was in, sure, when you first started,
Yeah.
there were no women in the
No.
military. There was a WAC corps,
yeah.
but every place I
you
was
find
stationed,
out
I never saw any.
There's no big difference. As I see troopers today, male, female, it doesn't even occur to me,
Right,
oh, that's
right,
that's
and they've
different.
done a good
Normal now.
job.
They've done a great job,
yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely, with your training, your equipment, they do as well as anybody, and
Yes.
it's,
Same with the military. They're on combat. They're in
Yeah.
combat duty.
I just saw a video of an all-woman tank crew in the Israeli Defense Force.
Yes.
and they
Oh,
did
yeah.
remarkably well.
They've had women in their forces
Yeah,
from
that
day
tank
one.
crew was as good as anybody we have in
Yes.
America, in the American Armor Force, so. Things change, the department
Right.
changes with it, it morphs along with the times change, both society-wise, technology-wise, the job has to keep changing, or else it's
Right.
not relevant, it's not gonna be effective. And the leadership has done a great job in keeping up with the times and modifying the department to suit the needs of today's society. You can't police today's society using 100-year-old techniques.
No, it's a
not
whole
gonna work.
different world.
Yep.
But, well, it was great having you here.
Well, it's my pleasure. It was a pleasure, and like I said,
Yeah.
we're happy to be in Northbridge, and we want to work
Yeah.
with the town in every way we can, and invite the folks in and be part of the.
Are you
activity.
opening, now, you're open on Tuesdays, but what time you close?
Usually it's 11 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon.
Okay, is there any times when you're open at night at all? or-
No, not normally. Again, special event. The Rotary Club wants to come over. We can, if we can staff it, we're willing to be there.
But if you got some volunteers that would be willing to work nights.
That's what
would
it's all
probably be
about, the
good,
volunteers. And if-
Because,
and,
people work during the day, they
absolutely, and.
we need,
Well, the only reason we're only open 2 days a week is the staffing.
right.
More staffing, more
It'd be nice if
available.
you open on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Saturdays, every Saturday, 11 to 4.
Oh, you are
Yeah,
Saturday, okay, so.
Tuesday and Saturday.
Oh, okay, so if you're working during the week, go there on a Saturday.
Yep, exactly. And like I said, if a group in town wants to set up something special, we've had the historical commission, you come over and have a meeting there and visit with us. So yeah, we can coordinate with any group of people, the scouts, anybody, and try to accommodate your schedule the best we can with our limitations on our
Well,
staff.
we're talking about, before we went on here, we had one of the first constables
Right.
was from
From
Northbridge.
Northbridge, Lieutenant Colonel Grimett is kind of
Right,
our
which
major
was the
historian.
state police force.
He was on the original state police as a constable. I wouldn't call him a constable, he's really a deputy. When you read that law, it's a
Right.
state police, there will be a head constable, and then he'll have deputies. But he was a state police officer, as we
Right.
know it today, and one of the original was from Northbridge. And then we celebrated, we went to the town and asked if we could participate in the celebration.
Yes,
And so we put the town seal on the front of the coin, then we put his likeness on the back of the coin.
I bought one of those
Okay.
coins.
And so, it's every way we can participate within the town and in the
Yes.
community. We want to be, a good partner within the community.
Well, right here in Northbridge, we have probably half a dozen troopers live in town.
Yeah, probably.
You go by, you see the
You see the cruiser?
cruiser in the yard.
Yep. Yeah.
Because they take them home now.
They take them home.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you lose a lot of mailboxes.
Now, when you had the barracks,
Yeah.
they drove their own car to the barracks?
No, that's what the Greyhound bus was about.
Oh, they took
When
the-
they
took the bus to
typically, you
the-
went to work for a week, and if they had a car back then, a lot of people didn't have a car.
Oh,
in
they had to
19
leave the car home for the wife to use.
Or you just didn't want couldn't make it to Pittsfield.
Right, yeah.
And so typically you jump on the Greyhound bus and take the bus to work,
And
and then 5 days later you would take the bus home.
now, did the state police pay for your bus tickets?
I don't know that. I don't know that. We've never asked.
That's
Yeah,
something to think about, I mean,
My guess is Greyhound probably waived it.
yeah, which
No.
would be good on their part.
Well, keep the rowdies quiet on the bus.
Right, yeah, right, exactly. His man's in uniform.
And you have and you would have somebody that's back then, hopefully they were trained in CPR or life-saving techniques. So
Right.
if something traumatic happened on the bus, you'd have somebody with some level of training
Yes,
to help them out. So my guess is, I don't know the answer to that, but my guess is Greyhound probably let them sit in an empty seat.
right. Right, well, yeah, let's
Okay.
close it out.
Huh?
You got about 1 minute left.
All right, well, I don't know.
Thank you for coming in, Dick.
My pleasure.
Been interesting.
And, well,
Yeah,
I
I'll
was
tell
glad
you-
to share the state police story with you.
Yeah, get down and see it. I mean, it's worth your while to go and see that
Well,
museum.
Please do.
Especially if you got a son or a daughter that's interested in getting into
Well,
law enforcement.
Or just got some questions, we can
Yeah,
discuss
yeah.
policing and introduce your son or daughter to police work and what policemen expect and what you can expect of them. And
Yes.
we're not the bad guys, we're not trying to harm you, and we're public servants.
You're only a problem to the people that are breaking the law.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah, and God, if you don't have someone to oversee the laws, we're in big trouble.
Well, I think some of the major cities in the country are finding that out, aren't they?
Yeah, they learned that the highway, didn't
Yeah,
they? Defund the police.
Defund
Well,
them, well,
then they're saying, oh,
okay.
maybe that was not such a good idea.
Maybe.
'Cause the police aren't here to harass you.
Not at all, no.
No, they're here to,
To
to
get the
keep law
job
and
done.
order.
That's right. Keep everybody happy, keep everybody in line and assist you. I don't know how many people you've assisted on the way and
Right.
helped them out. I'm lost, I'm having a heart attack, whatever.
Okay, we'll see you next week. We got our Christmas special. Dan Chauvin will be in here to entertain.